350. So shall we start?
Okay, no problem.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good afternoon, all, and welcome you again on our second session on the national webinar organized by Raj Lakshmi Foundation, College of Agriculture, Biotechnology, Madadgaon. Once again, we are welcoming you. So now we have the next speaker, that is Dr. Yogesh Bhagat. Dr. Yogesh Bhagat, sir, he is now currently working as Assistant Professor, Plant Molecular Biology at Vilasrao Deshmukh College of Agricultural Biotechnology under Vasantarao Naik Marathwada Krishi Vidyapith Parbhani. He has recognized with several national awards like PR Varma Award for Young Scientist by Indian Society of Mycology and Plant Pathology. University of Agriculture Sciences, the Harvard Merit Award during post-graduation degree. He has also secured first rank in the state of Maharashtra for his undergraduate. He has been also nominated for various national fellowships like ICAR SRF, DBT JRF, and etc. He also handled few projects, including 2 DBT projects, 1 ICR projects, and presently handling 1 state government project of DNA fingerprinting of crop varieties for public and private sector. He also has served in ICR, where he licensed various technologies developed by ICR and generated the revenue. That amount is around 30 lakhs during his tenure. Despite of this, his work has been presented in several national and international journals, and he published a few books and some book chapters. So with this information, I would like to invite Dr. Yogesh Bhagat sir as a speaker for our next session, and he will deliver his lecture on the basic of DNA fingerprinting and hybridity testing. So I heartily welcome sir. Sir, please start your session.
Thank you, Abhijit. So first of all, I'm good afternoon to one and all, and I'm very thankful to the Raj Lakshmi Foundation as they have invited me as a speaker. And just 2 days back, they have asked me that you should cover some basics. But yesterday, when I have asked them that what is the status of that means how many participants are there, so they have told me that there are more than 2,000 participants, and they are not only the students, but they are faculties, and they are from 7 to 8 different nations. So I have just actually I've been asked to deliver lecture on some basics things related to the DNA fingerprinting and hybridity testing. But despite of these, I'm covering some legal aspects so that it can be easily understandable. So I will start my presentation. So this is the structure of my presentation. So I will be talking a little bit about plant genetic resources and crop varieties, then DNA markers, DNA fingerprinting, some basic molecular used in lab for DNA fingerprinting, some popular DNA fingerprinting techniques that you may be aware of those things. What is the global status of DNA fingerprinting of crop varieties? Then with respect to India also, the status of what is the status of crop variety? Then some concerns and way forward in this area. So coming to the plant genetic resources and crop varieties. So by this time, you might be familiar with what plant genetic resources are. So these plant genetic resources, it encompasses everything whatever present on the earth, and that is related to the plant, which is beneficial to the mankind. So these plant genetic resources serve as a basic raw material for crop improvement. And from these plant genetic resources, you can fish out various kinds of for various biotic and abiotic stresses. And you can also transfer them to the various cultivated plants. And you can also have transgenic crops, designer crops. Designer crops means that crops of willingness. So what video type you would like, then what phenotype you would like to have. So even in the era of transgenics, due to some issues, plant genetic resources finds most valuable place as on today. So here in these slides, you can look at convention of biological diversity. So from heritage to mankind to the souvenir rights of the state. So this is the path where plant genetic resources travels. So before convention of biological diversity, so actually India is also the signatory of that, but before 1992, so before 1992, so the genetic resources, so heritage of mankind, that means they were available to the everyone. That means everyone can be easily access to them. But after signing this CBD, so the genetic resources becomes sovereign rights of the state. Means, see, suppose some genetic resources are present in India and some genetic resources are there in US. So whatever in India, that belongs to the, whatever present in India, that belongs to the India. And whatever genetic resources present in the US, that belongs to the US. So what happened after that? So if such a things happen, then the protection is becomes very important. And the questions comes in the mind: why not we harness the benefit from that what we have? So DNA fingerprinting is one technique which facilitates that protection. And so we'll be discussing a lot about this. So here we can see the plant genetic resources, as you know, that it encompasses everything, whatever present on the earth and related to the plant. So the whole chain of biodiversity, agrobiodiversity is small component, then plant genetic resources is further down component of agrobiodiversity. And crop varieties is just a part of that plant genetic resources. So these resources consist of everything, like land races, farmer varieties, parental lines of hybrids, release varieties, wild and weed species, primitive cultivars, genetic stocks, and I have been added at the last, like genetically modified organisms. So the genetically modified organism can also be included in that plant genetic resources. So before going further, it is very important to define the variety. So how one can define the variety? So as per the subsection 16 of a section 2 of Indian Seed Act 1966, what is the variety? It is a subdivision of a kind identified growth, yield, fruit, seed, and other characteristics. So then International Code for Nomenclature of Cultivated Plants, they have defined the variety as an assemblage of cultivated plants which is clearly distinguished by any characters. It may be morphological, physiological, cytological, chemical, or others, which when reproduced, it retains its distinguishing characters. So that is a variety. Then UPO, so International Union for Protection of Plant Variety, UPO. So they have defined the variety as a plant. So as you know, that plant grouping within a single taxon of the lowest rank, and it generally defined by the expression of characteristics resulting from a given genotype or combination of genotype. Then it should be distinguished from any other plant grouping by the expression of at least one of the said characteristics. And it is also considered as a unit with regard to its suitability for being propagated. So next is the essentially derived variety. So when we are talking about DNA fingerprinting technology, it is very important to distinguish a essentially derived variety from the variety. For example, see, if somebody develops a variety for 20 years, and I simply make some cosmetic changes in that variety, and I say that variety is mine, even though there is a 99.9% similarity. So how to distinguish them? So at that time, the DNA fingerprinting is coming into the picture. So protection of crop variety, how we can protect the plant variety. So there are various methods. So registration of varieties or germplasm, it can be done in somebody's name or it can be done on the organizational name. So in our Indian system, we have the Protection of Plant Variety and Farmers' Rights Authority, where we are using these parameters like distinctness, uniformity, and stability, which is the statutory requirement for a variety. And whatever the variety is there, it should be novel, it should be distinct from existing variety, it should be uniform and stable in its essential characteristics. So in our India, we have very unique system, that is the Protection of Plant Variety and Farmers' Rights Act 2001. So these are the different types of IPR. I'm not going into the details of this, but we have legal instrument in our country for providing protection of the varieties. So we have legislation in place, that is so we have different legislations in the place, that is the Protection of Plant Varieties and Farmers' Rights Act, then the Biological Diversity Act is there, the Patent Act is there. So the varieties are patented in the various countries like US, but in India, it is not, varieties are not being patented. It comes under the Plant Variety Protection and Farmers' Rights Act. So why we need DNA fingerprinting? So as I told earlier also, when new variety is often derived from an existing variety, like essentially derived variety. So I make some cosmetic changes, I say that variety is mine. So is there a system to check those things? So that we can, we can distinguish that essentially derived variety from the original variety, which has the identity around 99.9% similarity. So in such a case, the DNA fingerprinting plays an important role. So then coming to the hybrids, as you know, the people are developing new hybrids. So they are not disclosing what the parents are involved in the development of that hybrid. And hybrids often reproduce illegally without a license from original developers. So I will give you an example. Like, see, suppose I develop a hybrid in maize and somebody's stolen my parental lines, and he can reconstitute that hybrid from the parental lines. So the protection of parental lines also become very, very important. So that is the place where DNA fingerprinting comes into the picture. Next, grow out test, so which is conducted in the field, and we are taking the various morphological observations for maintaining the purity of a particular variety. So can we replace that grow out test? Because grow out test means growing in the field, letting the plants to go to the reproductive phase and then harvesting the seeds and then analyzing. So why not to take only the few seed samples or leaf tissues and analyze DNA that is pure or not? So this DNA fingerprinting techniques plays an important role in such cases. And the most important thing is that this technique feasible in all kinds of plant area. So it can be dead or it can be dead even. So for example, if somebody has stored some samples in herbarium for around 100 years, so still you can take that sample and you can isolate the DNA and you can see the profile of that particular samples. Then I'm talking a little bit about DNA markers because in the previous lecture only the Dr. Fakhruddin, who is one of the eminent scientists, and he has covered the very basics of DNA markers and their applications. So I'm talking little about the DNA markers and DNA markers. So let me give an example. So if in a class there are 20 students, and I would like to distinguish these 20 students sitting in the class. So I may say that they may be distinguished based on gender. Suppose out of 20, I can say that, okay, 10 are female and 10 are male. And suppose other characters, okay, the wearing of spec. So as you know, the wearing of spec. So out of the 20, suppose there are 9 students who are wearing the spec and 11 guys who are not wearing the spec. So wearing of spec, then gender, then suppose eye color, structure, height. So these are all the markers, and these are useful for the identification. So what is the basic requirement of marker? That it should be heritable and it should follow Mendelian inheritance. So these are the general properties of a ideal marker. So it should be highly polymorphic, it should be reproducible, it should be codominant, evenly distributed in the genome, it should discriminate the samples, then it should not subject to the environmental influences, neutral, inexpensive, and easy to measure. So here we can see a DNA sequence, which is of only 10 bases. Okay, so coming to the DNA markers, here you can see only 10 base pair sequence, and from the 10 bases, suppose each base has, that means each base can be replaced by the 4 possible bases. Suppose A can be replaced by T, or A can be replaced by C, or A can be replaced by G. So how many possible combinations you will get from that 10 bases? So it is 4 raised to 10. So from that 10 bases, this many possible combinations you will get, and this many variants you can observe. So this is 4 raised to 10. So it is unimaginable. So see, rice is around 430 MB, maize is around 2300 MB, then tomato is 900 MB. So how many possible variants, that means DNA markers, are abundant in nature. So you can generate the large number of DNA markers with such a DNA sequences. But see, I have given the example. In the previous example, I told you that suppose 20 students are there, and I am distinguishing them on the particular character. It may be height, it may be a gender, it may be a wearing of spec, it may be eye color. But if you see, if there are 25,000 individuals, so at that time markers are limiting, and at that time such a DNA marker plays an important role to distinguish such a 25,000 individuals. So that is why the DNA markers are very, very useful for identity testing, because number one, that is they are unlimited in number. Number two, that you can have DNA from any plant tissue like stem, leaf, bird, flower. So DNA is a physical entity. So it is not an express product of a DNA. So these DNA markers, as I have enlisted, that it has many, many applications. The DNA markers can be useful for the genetic studies. The DNA markers can be useful for as a various breeding tools. Then in production, very important. So in production, they can be used for the quality assurance and quality control, like genetic purity testing, trait purity testing, hybridity testing. It has also the application in legal applications like plant variety protection, patenting. So DNA fingerprinting is a way of identifying a specific individual rather than simply identifying a species. So species or particular trait. Many a times people confuse about the DNA fingerprinting, DNA barcoding, DNA typing, or genetic fingerprinting, or DNA profiling. So DNA barcoding, see, identifying a cultivar at the species levels, like species delineation. So that time we can call it as a DNA barcoding. So DNA fingerprinting, also known as DNA typing, it is also known as genetic fingerprinting or DNA profiling. And DNA profiling, if you see, it is very, very preliminary study, and the DNA fingerprinting, which is more authenticated data. So Alec Jaffrey, who has invented that DNA fingerprinting techniques is, and it has come into the practical in 1985. So in humans, it is generally used for the paternity or maternity testing, as you know, and for criminal identification. But in plants, it has a numerous applications. So here we can see the fingerprints and DNA fingerprints. So the DNA fingerprints are unique to each individual, and probability of two unrelated individuals having identical DNA fingerprints is much lower than that of fingerprint. That means DNA fingerprint has more detection power as compared to our routine fingerprints. So yes, this is very important. See, fingerprinting in humans and plants. So it is very, very complicated in the plants as compared to the humans. In humans, we are dealing with only one species, that is Homo sapiens. And you touch upon any plant, you can find a lot many species. You can take an example of cotton. So cotton hirsutum is there, cotton barbadensis is there, then Gossypium hirsutum is there, then Gossypium barbadensis is there, then Arboreum is there, Herbaceum is there, Raimondi is there. And within each species, you can find a lot of variety. It's not as simple as the humans. In humans, only one species, that is the one protocol. And that is similarity in requirement, equipment, or protocol you need. But if there are more number of species, so the diverse requirement. So humans are generally, humans are outbreeding, but in plants you can find some are vegetated, some plants are vegetatively propagated, some are self-pollinated, some are cross-pollinated, and every kind of breeding behavior you can find in the plants. So in humans, one individual, one profile. But in plants, we can't say that because variety is not an individual. It is a group of individual, or it is a population. So coming to the basic, coming to the basic molecular biology techniques that are used in DNA fingerprinting. So you know that there are PCR. So this will be the repetition, but the PCR electrophoresis, these two techniques are very, very common techniques used in DNA fingerprinting. And some popular DNA fingerprinting techniques that if you go through the literature, you will find a large number of techniques. So you can find a large number of techniques, and they are the basic modifications of the, they are the modifications of some basic techniques. So these are the gel, as you know, the gel electrophoresis where, so there are various kinds of gel electrophoresis, like aerogel electrophoresis is there, then polyacrylamide gel electrophoresis is there, and we are using the different concentration of that polymers in the different for the in the gel for the study. So these are the various DNA fingerprinting techniques available today, as on today, for distinguishing the various cultivars or hybrids. So, and these are the modification of some basic molecular markers. So I'm not going into the details because Dr. Person has already covered it. So RFLP, as you know, the restriction fragment length polymorphism, where we are using some probe for hybridization. It may be radiolabel, it may be non-radiolabel, and it is one type of codominant markers, and it is the first marker that has been used in the DNA fingerprinting. That is before 1990. So here you can see the southern blot and various bands. So we have that bands. Now, RAPD. So here one primer we are using, and but it is a dominant kind of marker. So here the ASSR. So the simple sequence repeats. So in all the genome, some nucleotide repeating n number of times. Suppose in mononucleotide ASSR, so means only one nucleotide has repeated for a particular times. Suppose A10, so the 10 times A has been repeated. Then dinucleotide ASSR like 6 times has been repeated. Then trinucleotide ASSR like CTG, it has been repeated 5 times. So coming to the next marker, that is SNPs. Okay, so this is another marker technique, and it has a greater utility. So there is a lot of discussion going on about their use in DNA fingerprinting, but I'm not at that opinion at this moment about their use for DNA fingerprinting. So there are many reasons for that, and many people advocating that this can be used. So here we can see how the SNP detection methods, what are the different SNP detection methods are there, like sequencing is there, DGG is there, TILing is there, then microarray based. So there are various methods of detecting this SNP marker. That is one of the reasons for not using it, because we have the various platform for SNP detection, and there is no harmony and identity in the protocol as compared to the SSR markers. So I can still say that the SSR markers are most robust. So the classification of DNA markers. So all of these markers are classified as first generation markers. So the first generation, second generation, and third generation markers. So first generation markers, they were hybridized based. Then second generation markers, they are generally the PCR based. And third generation markers, they are the sequence based markers. So these markers later on classified as random DNA markers. So that means any stretch of DNA which is showing polymorphism and tagged by a primer of a variable length. There are some gene targeted markers. So they are derived from polymorphism within a genes. But not every gene targeted marker is involved in phenotypic trait variation. So there is you can classify them as a functional markers. They are derived from a polymorphic sequences, and they are more likely to be involved in phenotypic variation. So functional markers means they are more likely to be involved in the phenotypic variation. So coming to the global development of the DNA fingerprinting. So as you know, in India, we don't have any fingerprint bill, but at least we can register the variety on PPV. In USA, the DNA Identification Act is there, 1994. Then UK, the Criminal Justice and Public Order Act is there. In Canada, the DNA Identification Act 1998 is there. In other countries also, the Norway, Finland, Belgium, Denmark, they also are having such a DNA fingerprinting or DNA identification acts. So coming to the development at global level. So DNA fingerprinting, you have heard about the UPO, that is International Union for Protection of Plant Variety. And some of the countries of the UPO doesn't recognize DNA fingerprinting, whereas some recognize it. And because whoever not recognizes DNA fingerprinting techniques, they are just demanding that see, the variety has been characterized by the dust, so distinctness, uniformity, and stability, and various morphological characters. So dust trial, we are taking in the field, we are taking various observations on that. So for maintaining the purity of that particular variety. But what these some countries are saying, they are asking one DNA molecular marking particular characters. Different, so that not that means giving that much importance to that. So UPO has a group working on some biochemical and molecular techniques and also DNA profiling. And there are many countries which are moving ahead with many of these advancement in DNA profiling. And there are very pilot study, but they are not in depth study. So in France, you can see they are advocating the use of SNP markers. In South Korea, you can see that South Korea Korea Seed and Variety Service is there, and they have a molecular marker database. So they have a molecular marker database of around 5,000 varieties of 30 crops. So in USA also they are advocating the use of SNP genotyping or various for distinguishing the soybean cultivars. And so UPO is one of the international organizations who are involved in that. So there are many organizations like UPO. So like Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development is there. Then International Seed Testing Association is there. Then Association of Official Seed Analysis is there. But in India, if you see, from last 3 to 4 years, so in India, before releasing the variety, the breeder has to fill up some form. That means if you variety cannot be notified or it will not release at the national level. So you have to give as per the section 5C of that Central Variety Release Committee, you have to give the information of DNA profile of variety, hybrid, inbreed, or ABR line of hybrid. So this is a prerequisite whenever registers a variety. So in the section 9, they are asking the DNA profile of variety, hybrid, inbreed, and inbreed. And they are asking that information on the molecular discrimination should be provided. Such information can be developed at crop-based institute or labs. Information includes the detail of amplicons like name, sequence, number, primer, with reference to polymorphic marker, and they also need a relevant photograph relevant to that. But I can say that it is very vague statement. Why I am saying that? See, I have given one example to you that distinguishing the 20 students in a class. Then I have given the example for how to distinguish the 25,000 individuals. But we have also compared the what are problems in human beings and what are the problems in the crop varieties to such as fingerprinting. As we know, there are various species and there are various protocols. So there are some organizations like OECD, as I told you, AOSA, then ISTA. So what they had what they did for the human beings, so they developed 30 STR markers globally. So these 30 STR markers can distinguish all human beings present on the earth. So after so many years of research, they have harmonized everything and come up with these 30 STR unified markers and protocol to distinguish humans globally. But we don't have such a unified markers and protocol uses in the world. Therefore, many organizations are coming together to harmonize this kind of. So we have to work on such a section 9. And in India, which is the one of the requirement for this variety. Later on, you can see the GEAC, that is Genetically Engineered Appraisal Committee. So, you know, the GEAC is giving the permission to release the various transgenics plants. And, you know, we are developing various lot of transgenics nowadays. But whatever the transgenic material we are developing, what is the background of that material you are using? In which background you transfer the transgene? That what is the so that background material is needed to be DNA fingerprinted. So because what happens many times, see the gene of interest transfer in the background, and if person X is saying that this variety is this, and in same genetic background, the other person can transfer the gene of interest. So what's happening? The genetic base is getting narrowed down, and that hybrid is become or that variety is becoming vulnerable to various biotic or abiotic stresses. So genetic base should be variable, taking into the consideration, and that is the requirement. So from 2010 in India, it is mandatory to have a DNA fingerprint of such a background genotype or background material. Otherwise, it won't be released. So keeping in mind, so there are no harmonized protocol from various crop-based institutes. So last year in 2019, the Director General of ICAR, Dr. Tiloshan Mahapatra, has made a committee of 10 people to harmonize these protocols. So, and he is very instrumental in that. And he has formulated a committee to discuss, decide the scientific, technical, and legal issues related to DNA fingerprinting of crop varieties. And once that protocol will be developed, or once that that means unified marker, unified protocol is getting developed, it will be available in the public. But how that what we have to how the unified protocol will work? So there should be a standard DNA extraction procedure. So we know that we are using various DNA extraction procedure, but they will give they will say that okay, you have to go with this protocol. Okay, then which marker you have to use? So they will say that you have to use the SSR markers. Then they will also give the PCR profiles, like at what anemia temperature you have to amplify that. Then which electrophoresis technique you have to use, like whether you have to use the whether you have to use the page, or whether you have to go for the agarose, or whether and what percentage of gel you have to use. So all these things will be things will be harmonized, and they will also give the details like how much microgram of DNA you have to use and which primer you have to use, like that. So all will be well defined, and there are some concerns, and that in the next slides I will come for that. So see in our institute, so we are receiving the samples from various private and public sectors. So till now we have received around 370 samples for DNA fingerprinting, and with the polymorphic markers, we are generating the reports and we are submitting to them. So this is the team: Dr. Hemant Patel, Dr. Rahul Chauhan, Mr. Abhijit Deshmukh, who are working in that, who are working as a team. So what are the concerns regarding this DNA fingerprinting? So here we can see the first is the development of quality standards and monitoring protocol. So this is the first concern. Then selection of fingerprinting marker system for different species based on reproducibility, discrimination power, and possibility of robust database. So which marker system, which species, so that we have to standardize. Then identification of microsatellite markers in crops where these are not available. So then development of such a DNA fingerprinting database at national level, like South Korea has did for 5,000 crops of 5,000 varieties of 30 crops, then there should be a standard reporting format. So I just have seen, I have shown you the PPFRA format. So that section 9 and section 5, that should get refined. Then establishment of advisory body for the implementation of such a quality control and networking. Then there is a need of referral laboratory for DNA fingerprinting tests. Then establishment of a network of planned DNA fingerprinting and human resource development in the network. So creation of a scientific and legal awareness regarding the authenticity and reliability of DNA fingerprints in plants. So here we can see, just I'm giving an example coming for the plant DNA fingerprinting bill. Here we can see the human DNA profiling bill. So that bill in India, with respect to India, I'm saying, so this bill was originally proposed in 2007, and in 2012, the drafting of that particular bill has begun. And what was that bill? This bill proposes to form a national DNA data bank and a DNA profiling board. So with respect to human, I'm talking. So the board will define standards and controls for DNA profiling. And in 2017, DBT forwarded the revised draft of that bill as the DNA-based technology use and recognition bill 2017. So again into 2018, the DNA profiling bill 2018 approved by Union Cabinet, but when it is tabled in the Parliament, it was argued that it should be referred to a standard committee to resolve existing problems. So whatever the concerns, as I told you, and so you just imagine, so 27, so it is a long journey for us. That means when the DNA fingerprinting bill comes, but that means we have to initiate that whatever we have. So the different database we should create. So with this, I finish my presentations, and I'm thankful all for listening to me. And if you have any questions or clarifications, you can ask me. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yogesh sir. It's a nice presentation. Yes. Very good and a nice presentation, sir, and very informative. And we get very basic idea regarding the legal issues of varietal development, and also
yes.
We get the basic information for DNA fingerprinting. So I would like to ask our students and participants, if they have any questions, they can unmute and ask the question, or otherwise raise your hand, we will unmute you and ask the question directly to sir.
Otherwise they can put in chat box, so that
even you can put it on chat box, so we will read and we will convey your question to sir.
So there is a questions like how many SSR markers data will be given to the PVP plant variety protection and FR. So see the PPVFR, as I told you, see, this is very vague statement. Means whenever some breeder is going to fill up that form and he's not knowing, okay, how many varieties he has to compare, what kinds of check he has to use when he will do the DNA fingerprinting, which marker he has to use. But it is only the vague statement that it should distinguish the existing varieties or check varieties from that newly developed varieties.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Sir, is it there a limit to choose the molecular markers for DNA fingerprinting, like in standard, or how?
See, there is no. Yes. See, if you have to, if you would like to create an DNA fingerprinting database for a particular crop, I'm saying, okay, and for that particular species, suppose you can say the like for example, you can say for the soybean, if you would like to create a DNA marker database. So you have to screen the lot many markers, okay, and then you have to identify such a unique the markers which gives the unique DNA fingerprint. Okay, so the crop specific alleles you have to identify in such a situation. And as I told you, see, in human beings right now, the US has 30 STR markers which distinguish all human beings globally. So why not you can find out such a markers which can distinguish all the soybean varieties whatever present in India. So a lot of work has to be done on that, but so you can use the many numbers of markers, and we can also use the various combination. See, combination of, see, I can say that, okay, if you use these 2 or 3 markers, you can distinguish 5 varieties, suppose at a time, okay, on same platform. If you use 4 or 5 markers on same platforms, you can distinguish the 20 varieties. So like that, you have to work out on that.
Yeah. Sir, another the audience, they are asking question: what is the difference between DNA fingerprinting and diversity analysis, or is it the same?
No. See, the concept is different, and your purpose or your objective is different in case of DNA profiling. Okay, so the molecular distances we are carrying out generally when we are studying the genetic diversity is just to find out the molecular distances. Okay, but in case of